What happens when Emily Blunt joins a daytime talk show for what starts as a routine interview, only for an unexpected exchange of opinions to turn into the most talked about discussion of the week? Make sure to subscribe to the Star Talks and like and comment for more talk show coverage. The audience erupts in applause as Emily Blunt walks onto the set, greeting each panelist with a warm smile before taking her seat. The conversation begins on a light note, covering her latest film, her approach to choosing projects, and the balance between work and family. Whoopi Goldberg smiles. It's always good to have you back. Every time you visit, you've got something new going on. Emily laughs. I've been lucky to stay busy. I enjoy finding projects that challenge me. The audience applauds. Joy Behar grins. And somehow you make it all look effortless. Emily shakes her head with a laugh. I promise it isn't. Sunny Hostin joins the conversation. One thing people often admire about you is that you rarely get pulled into public controversy. Is that intentional? Emily considers the question. I think I've always tried to let the work speak for itself whenever possible. Sunny nods. But public figures don't always have that luxury. I understand that. She continues calmly. There are times when people expect you to have an opinion on everything happening in the world. Sunny leans forward. And should they? The audience grows noticeably quieter. Emily smiles politely. I think everyone should be thoughtful before speaking, regardless of their profession. Sunny follows up. But celebrities have influence. Doesn't that create an extra responsibility? Emily nods. It certainly creates responsibility. So where do you draw the line? I draw it at authenticity. Several audience members applaud. Sunny continues. What does that mean in practice? It means I don't believe speaking simply because people expect it is always the right choice. If I have something meaningful to contribute, I'll gladly do so. If I'm still learning, I'd rather admit that than pretend to be an expert. The audience applauds again. Joy smiles. That's probably a healthier approach than feeling pressured to comment on everything. Sunny isn't entirely convinced. But couldn't silence sometimes be misunderstood? Emily nods. Absolutely. So why risk that misunderstanding? Emily pauses before answering. Because I think honesty matters more than appearances. The audience listens closely. If I'm speaking only to avoid criticism, then I'm not really contributing anything valuable. A wave of applause spreads across the studio. Whoopi smiles. Interesting answer. Sunny responds thoughtfully. I understand your point, but many viewers believe public figures should use their platforms more consistently. Emily answers respectfully. I respect that perspective. She continues. But I also think using a platform responsibly includes knowing when someone else has greater expertise. Sunny asks another question. So you don't see every issue as requiring a celebrity response? Emily smiles. I don't. Sunny raises an eyebrow. Some people might disagree. Emily smiles back. They're welcome to. The audience laughs softly. Emily continues. I've learned that disagreement doesn't have to become conflict. The audience applauds. Sunny nods. Fair enough. She pauses before asking one final question. Do you ever worry that people mistake staying measured for avoiding difficult conversations? Emily answers without hesitation. I don't mind people asking difficult questions. She smiles warmly. I only hope we're willing to listen to the answers, even when they're not the ones we expected. The audience responds with the loudest applause of the segment. Whoopi glances toward the camera. That's a good place to pause. When we come back, we'll continue this fictional discussion and take a deeper look at how public expectations shape today's conversations. The audience applauds as the show heads to commercial, with the respectful disagreement leaving viewers eager to hear what comes next. The audience applauds as the show returns from a commercial break. Whoopi smiles across the table. We're back with Emily Blunt, and before the break we started a conversation about public expectations, responsibility, and knowing when to speak. Let's continue. Emily nods with a smile. I'm happy to. Sunny picks up where they left off. I wanted to follow up on something you said. You mentioned authenticity. Some people might hear that and think it's an easy answer, but how do you actually define it? Emily takes a moment before responding. For me, authenticity means saying what I genuinely believe, not what I think people expect me to say. The audience applauds. Sunny nods. But expectations are part of being in the public eye. They are. So how do you separate public expectation from personal conviction? Emily smiles. By asking myself whether I'd say the same thing if there weren't cameras in front of me. The audience responds with another round of applause. Joy laughs. That's actually a pretty good test. Emily laughs too. It keeps me honest. Sunny continues. Do you ever feel pressure from social media? Of course. And how do you handle it? I try not to confuse the loudest voices with the majority. A few audience members clap. Whoopi smiles. That's something a lot of people forget. Sunny asks another question. But public conversations move quickly now. Sometimes people expect immediate responses. Emily nods. I know. So does taking time ever become a disadvantage? It can. Then why do it? Emily answers calmly. Because I'd rather give a thoughtful answer tomorrow than an incomplete one today. The audience applauds more loudly. Joy looks toward Sunny. I don't think patience gets enough credit anymore. Sunny smiles. I'll agree with that. She turns back to Emily. Let me ask this another way. Have you ever changed your mind after hearing someone else's perspective? Emily smiles immediately. Many times. The audience quiets. I think changing your mind after learning something new is a strength, not a weakness. Sunny nods thoughtfully. Some people see consistency as a sign of conviction. Emily replies. I think conviction and growth can exist together. Several audience members applaud. Whoopi adds. If you stop learning, you stop growing. Emily smiles. Exactly. Sunny leans forward once more. You've worked with people from many different backgrounds. Has that changed how you approach disagreements? It definitely has. In what way? I've learned that listening isn't the same as agreeing. The audience applauds. Emily continues. You can genuinely hear someone out, respect their experience, and still reach a different conclusion. Joy smiles. That's becoming a lost art. The audience laughs softly. Sunny says, I think viewers sometimes expect these conversations to produce winners and losers. Emily nods. I've noticed that. But you don't see it that way? No. What do you see? I see opportunities to understand why someone thinks differently. The audience applauds warmly. Sunny smiles. I'll admit, that's not the answer I expected. Emily laughs. Sometimes the unexpected answer is the honest one. Whoopi looks around the table. I think what's interesting is that this discussion has stayed respectful even when there have been disagreements. Joy grins. That's because nobody's trying to score points. The audience laughs. Sunny smiles at Emily. I appreciate that you've answered every question directly. And I appreciate thoughtful questions, Emily replies. Sunny nods. Even the difficult ones? Emily laughs. Especially the difficult ones. The audience applauds enthusiastically. Whoopi glances toward the audience. We've got one more segment coming up. When we return, we'll hear some audience questions and wrap up this conversation. The applause continues as the show heads into another commercial break, leaving the audience eager to hear how the discussion concludes. The audience applauds as the program returns for its third segment. The discussion has become the focus of the episode, and everyone at the table seems eager to continue. Whoopi smiles. Welcome back. We've covered a lot of ground already, and I think what stands out is that this has stayed respectful, even when there have been clear differences of opinion. The audience applauds. Emily nods. I think respectful conversations are usually the most productive ones. Sunny smiles. I agree. So I'd like to explore one more idea. Emily gestures encouragingly. Go ahead. Sunny continues. You've spoken about authenticity and taking time before responding. But what happens when remaining silent causes people to assume the worst? Emily pauses briefly. I understand that concern. She continues. But I've learned that assumptions are impossible to control. If I spend all my energy trying to correct every assumption, I lose sight of what actually matters. Several audience members applaud. Joy looks toward Emily. Has that become easier with experience? Emily laughs softly. I wish I could say yes. The audience laughs. It gets easier to recognize what deserves your attention, but criticism never completely disappears. Sunny nods. So how do you decide which criticism is worth listening to? Emily answers thoughtfully. I ask myself one question. Is there something I can genuinely learn from it? The audience grows quiet. If the answer is yes, I pay attention. If it's simply meant to provoke a reaction, I let it go. A round of applause fills the studio. Whoopi smiles. That's practical advice. Sunny follows up. So you're saying criticism isn't always negative? Exactly. Emily continues. Sometimes the people who challenge you respectfully help you grow the most. Sunny smiles. I appreciate hearing that. Joy jokes. So Sunny's helping people grow today? Everyone laughs, including Sunny. I'll take that as a compliment. The audience applauds. Whoopi turns toward the audience. We have time for a couple of audience questions. A microphone is handed to an audience member. My question is for both of you. Do you think it's possible to disagree without damaging relationships? Emily answers first. I absolutely do. How? By remembering that disagreement isn't the same thing as disrespect. The audience applauds. She continues. If we start treating every disagreement like a personal attack, meaningful conversations become impossible. Sunny nods. I agree with that. She adds. I'd also say it's important to ask questions before making assumptions. The audience applauds again. Another audience member stands. Emily, has your approach to interviews changed over the years? Emily smiles. Definitely. In what way? When I was younger, I thought every answer had to be perfect. The audience listens closely. Now I think honesty is much more valuable than perfection. Several audience members clap. Sunny asks, does honesty ever make you nervous? Emily laughs. Every single time. The audience laughs with her. But I think people connect more with honesty than polished answers. Whoopi nods. I think that's true. Joy adds. Nobody relates to perfection. The audience applauds. Sunny leans in with one final question. If someone watching today disagrees with everything you've said, what would you tell them? Emily smiles warmly. I'd thank them for listening. The audience becomes very quiet. She continues. Nobody grows by talking only to people who already agree with them. Different perspectives are valuable when everyone approaches the conversation with respect. The audience responds with one of the loudest rounds of applause of the afternoon. Sunny smiles back. I think that's a fair place to meet. Emily nods. I think so too. Whoopi looks toward the camera. We've got just a few minutes left. After the break, we'll wrap up this fictional discussion, hear some final thoughts from everyone at the table, and take a look at how viewers are reacting. The audience applauds enthusiastically as the cameras pull back and the show heads into its final commercial break. The audience applauds as the show returns for its final segment. The atmosphere around the table is noticeably calmer than when the discussion first began. Whoopi smiles as she looks from one panelist to the next. Welcome back. We've had a thoughtful conversation today, and before we wrap up, I'd like everyone to leave our viewers with one final thought. She turns to Emily. What would you hope people watching take away from this discussion? Emily smiles appreciatively. I'd hope people remember that conversations don't have to end with everyone agreeing. Sometimes the most valuable outcome is simply understanding why someone else sees the world differently. The audience applauds warmly. Sunny nods. I think that's an important point. She continues. We've disagreed on a few things today, but I appreciate that every answer has been respectful. Emily smiles. I appreciate the questions. Good questions usually lead to better conversations. The audience applauds again. Joy laughs. And hopefully better television. The audience laughs with her. Whoopi smiles. I think today proved that people can challenge one another without turning the conversation into an argument. Sunny looks toward Emily. I'll admit something. Emily nods. Go ahead. When we started, I expected a much sharper disagreement. The audience chuckles. But as we kept talking, I realized we actually agreed on the bigger idea, that thoughtful conversations matter. Emily smiles. I felt the same way. She continues. I don't think respect requires agreement. I think it requires listening. Several audience members applaud. Sunny responds. And listening doesn't mean abandoning your own perspective. Exactly, Emily replies. It simply means giving someone else the opportunity to explain theirs. The audience applauds again. Whoopi turns toward the audience. I think that's a message worth remembering. She glances around the studio. We've got time for one last audience comment. A microphone is handed to an audience member. I just wanted to say it was nice seeing people disagree without interrupting each other. The audience applauds. Emily smiles. Thank you. Sunny nods. I appreciate hearing that. Whoopi laughs. We'll take compliments whenever we can get them. The audience laughs. As the conversation comes to a close, the panelists thank one another for the respectful discussion. Emily stands, shakes hands with everyone at the table, and waves to the audience before the credits begin to roll. In this story, Viewers continue discussing the episode online throughout the day. Some praise Emily's calm and measured approach, while others say Sunny asked thoughtful questions that kept the conversation engaging. Many comments focus on how the discussion remained respectful despite genuine differences of opinion. Entertainment blogs and fan communities in this fictional scenario describe the exchange as an example of how television discussions can be engaging without becoming hostile. Viewers quote several moments from the conversation and debate which perspective they found most convincing, but many agree that both sides made thoughtful points. As the episode comes to an end, the audience gives one final round of applause while the cameras slowly pull back from the table. Thank you for watching this talk show story. Whose perspective did you agree with the most? Share your opinion in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to the Star Talks for more talk show stories inspired by celebrity interviews and television debates, created purely for entertainment.